Hello everybody, I'm Charlie Tolhurst and welcome to Charlie Tolhurst Show for today, the 18th of November. Being moved slightly forward this week due to, as I've got other commitments. But of course, we'll be keeping you up to date with all the latest news. And of course, a special today with it being Children in Need Day. And we're going to be trying to raise awareness for children who need it the most. I'm joined by Labour Party supporter Zach James to run all latest news. Hello, Zach.
Hi, Charlie. Hello, mate.
Right, let's start with the autumn statement now on my show, because we had a major announcement yesterday from the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Jeremy Hunt, who announced some big tax increases to the UK economy, and it will certainly affect many working people across this country. Now, I can give you guys the list of what is going to be happening by the full autumn statement, which you can now view online on gov.uk. Here it is. This is Jeremy Hunt's own words. It will come a significant time of economic challenge for the UK global economy. Obviously, this is probably all Jeremy Hunt's words here. He reckoned that debit interest spending could reach £120.4 billion this year. It will also come with the additional income tax rate threshold, which will be from £150,000 to £125,000, increase in taxes for those on high income, as well as that national insurance and inheritance tax thresholds will maintain at their current level for another 2 years to April 2028. The government will also reduce the dividend allowance and capital gains tax annual exempt amounts. Well, there was loads of other announcements. There was also the increase of 35% as well on, I think, income tax rates as well. One tax will certainly increase to 35%. Zach can update me on that in a minute. But of course, the biggest one that was missed out and what Hunt received a lot of criticism for was, of course, the fuel duty rate. That is going to be raised by about 23%. That's about 12p a litre. That's coming into effect in March of next year. And that will impact many motorists, including myself and Zach, who we both drive now, at the pumps, probably looking nearer £2 a litre for especially diesel cars and near petrol cars to filling up the tanks. Zach, what did you make to Jeremy Hunt's budget the other day? I have to say, for me, it was very disastrous.
I mean, he sort of went into the budget sort of doom and gloom, and in some ways he was actually right on that. He was the doom and gloom Chancellor. I think he called it an early version of Scrooge or something like that. I mean, Christmas is a month away, and I sort of don't want to feel that festive a month away, but he made a Scrooge reference, and I can't get away with that. So, yeah, it was quite a lot of tax increases, a few spending, not as big spending increases, should I say, as what was being expected. And some would say inflationary, we need to include inflation at real terms, spending decrease, and you're probably right on that. Let's just go through some of them. For example, taxes. Some good things. Minimum wage up 10%, going from $9.50 to $10.42 an hour from next April. That's for 23 and over, so I'm not including that, sadly. Pensions benefits, triple lock stain benefits are rising in line with inflation. The top four, this is one of the ones that can be probably criticised a lot. Stealth taxes. Top 45 additional rate of income tax will be paid on earnings over 125,140 instead of those 150,000. So if you receive less money, you'll be paying more tax, basically, which is not good in many ways, because a lot of people will move into the higher tax bracket, and that will just. It may sound like people earning that lot. Well, that's it may sound like they're earning a lot, but it's actually a real terms cut for them, but income cut for them, really, in many ways, moving a lot of these freezing the threshold. Income tax, personal allowance, higher rate thresholds frozen. National insurance and inheritance tax thresholds also frozen. I suppose that's good in some ways. Tax-free allowances of dividend capital gains tax also due to cut next year. And also, it looks like we're going to get council tax hikes as well for 5%, for 95% of councils from next year as well. That's going to be felt by the ordinary family who pays taxes. That really is going to hurt, no doubt about it. The energy price cap is going up from $2,500 to $3,000 from April. As well, household and means tested benefit will get £900 support payments. I suppose that's good in some ways. £300 payments to pensioners, £150 for individuals with disability benefits. So £300 payments could include wealthy pensioners as well. Don't need to be done. Good news. And I sort of, I've talked about this before, where big oil and gas are making profits
The
out of
windfall tax.
and the windfall tax goes from 25 to 35, extended until March 28, so another 6 years, or 5.5 if you want to be grateful. A new 45% tax on companies that generate electricity to apply from January. Ooh, that's a big tax as well. And in other news as well, what the Office of Budget Responsibility said, we are now in a recession. The Bank of England has sort of said that as well. So I think we can take it we are in a recession. Growth is going to be 4.2% this year, but it's going to shrink by 1.4% next year. That's a recession as well. It's going to recover back 1.3, 2.6, 2.7 for the next 3 years. Inflation to be 9.1% this year. So inflation may have peaked, and then 7.4%, but it's going to be a long old drag on inflation. It's still very high. It's going to be dragging on. And the unemployment expected to rise from 3.6% to 4.9% in 24. That is a huge amount of people who are going to be out of the market looking for jobs, I'm afraid. Government will give itself 5 years to hit debt spending target instead of 3 years as well. Good news on the school spend, on the spending rise. I mean, those critical services that are, like education, health services, NHS budget is going to increase 3.3 for the next 2 years, spending by 2.3, larger payments of old governments, defence spending to be maintained at 2% now. I suppose in Ben Wallace's case, it could have been resigning matter if that went down. Whether it will in real terms will be remain to see. Overseas aid, this is going to disappoint campaigners, 0.5% for the next 5 years, below the 0.7% target. That is still not being overturned. Very disappointed on that, I have to say. As well, 13.6 billion over the next 5 years to help firms' business rates. Import tax, removing more than 100 food products. The online sales tax plan has been scrapped as well. The lifetime cap on social care has been delayed by 2 years. Another kick in the face for social care. The social house renting increase capped to 7% for next year instead of 11% due to inflation. And as you mentioned, Charlie, as well, the fuel duty exercise is actually, Jeremy Hunt didn't actually mention this in his speech, but the fuel duty is going to increase by 13p. Quite stunningly, not in the speech. It's also as well going to be the electric cars, van and motorcycle to pay road taxes from 25. That's obviously ahead of the moving to all bans of diesel and petrol sales from 2030. So that's another 6 years away. But yeah, some good news, some bad news in this budget, I think. But wow, real living standards, according to the ONS as well, this is going to be the kick in the butt, are going to drop by 7% over the next 2 years. It's a stunning, shocking feature of the dire situation that we've left ourselves in. And I suppose in some ways, well, the government have managed to mitigate the mistakes that they made in that so-called mini huge budget. They've not fixed others as well, I'm afraid. So yeah, this is a poor budget for many reasons.
Yep, and this is Jeremy Hunt announcing the tax increases in his autumn statement just the other day. I've listened to this.
The OBR forecasts the UK's inflation rate to be 9.1% this year and 7.4% next year. They confirm that our actions today help inflation to fall sharply from the middle of next year. They also judge that the UK, like other countries, is now in recession. I start with personal taxes. Asking more from those who have more means that the first difficult decision I take on tax is to reduce the threshold at which the 45p rate becomes payable from £150,000 to £125,140. Those earning £150,000 or more will pay just over £1,200 more in tax every year. Next, windfall taxes. I have no objection to windfall taxes if they are genuinely about windfall profits caused by unexpected increases in energy prices. But I've decided that from January the 1st until March 28, we will increase the energy profits levy from 25 to 35%. The structure of our energy market also creates windfall profits for low carbon electricity generation. So from January the 1st, we've decided to introduce a new temporary 45% levy on electricity generators. Together, these measures raise £14 billion next year. For the remaining 2 years of the spending review, we'll protect the increases in departmental budgets we've already set out in cash terms, and then grow resource spending at 1% a year in real terms in the 3 years that follow. But I will soften the blow on businesses with a nearly £14 billion tax cut over the next 5 years. Nearly 2/3 of properties will not pay a penny more next year, and thousands of pubs, restaurants, and small high street shops will benefit.
As Jeremy Hunt there is saying, there is a war on small businesses across this nation, as tax increases are going to cause problems for the cost of living crisis, and this will mean hospitality businesses are going to struggle. Please comment down below, guys, what you make the latest autumn statement released by Jeremy Hunt as well. Moving on now to Russians' invasion of Ukraine, which this week has been dominated by a missile strike in Poland, killed 2 people earlier this week. And Volodymyr Zelensky has used the phrase earlier this week, "It was significant escalation, we must act." Basically, the provocation, Russia called it, for escalation of the conflict. Now, did Zelensky's words potentially trigger NATO to impeach or act Article 5? Well, that hasn't come true. But there are still a lot of questions around where this missile first was fired, what side fired it, because Zelensky's saying it was not Ukrainian, but NATO says it's Ukrainian. This, to me, Zach, clearly, findings of this have still been very scarce at the moment.
Yeah, certainly on that, Charlie. It's very scarce at the moment. But the current conclusion is so far that it was potentially a Ukrainian missile that landed in Polish territory and killed the 2 people indeed. But the missile was not intended to go into Poland. It was used as a self-defense way. And that's the conclusion from NATO and US intelligence initial findings of it. Now, obviously, Zelensky is going to be hell-bent on saying that it was a Russian missile and, it's escalating the conflict. There was obviously talks over the last few days when this missile struck Poland that maybe Article 4 would be triggered, which is a sort of a way to get NATO people down the table and get ambassadors around and talk about whether the Poland's integral territory was being, dismissed or something like that, or being invaded or anything like that, or being harmed. But once they've concluded that it was Ukraine that potentially done that, I think what became clear to me is that Article 4 was not necessary. Now, Article 5 was also not necessary in this situation as well. Some say, well, they go for Article 5 quickly and then the whole of NATO will start getting involved. But it's not, as from what we can now know, obviously it's not as bad as we feared. That it's not the Russians by the looks of it. Obviously, Zelensky will stand up and say it was, but it appears that NATO is differing on this one compared to previous times. NATO has been pretty much on the Ukrainian side, no matter what. I mean, this time, this is the first major split in a while. I mean, the only time I can remember them splitting from Zelensky during the period of this war was that no-fly zone. But that was understandable, really, to be fair, why they didn't do that. So this is the first split in quite a long time. The fact that they've only managed to split twice on this overall is pretty much shows you united NATO relying with Ukraine on matters of the war. But on this one, it appears that it might have just been a Ukrainian missile that was not intended to go, into Poland territory. If it was a Russian missile and it was viewed to be from Russia, then that would have been an escalation. That would have been an escalation. If it was deliberate, then that would have been a severe escalation. But the fact that when we heard the term Russian-made, but also as well, we heard the term that it was once the intelligence officials in the US and other areas found that it was Ukraine, I think the consensus is it was accidental, no doubt about it. And I think also the consensus as well is, even though this was a Ukrainian missile, the whole point of it is it's still Russia's fault, because without Russia invading and using to destroy civilian buildings and use their war and energy, this wouldn't happen in the first place. So, you know, that's a fact. It wouldn't happen in the first place. So, you know, Zelensky's got to sort of be careful here how he reacts sometimes. I mean, Polish have done really well, have handled this very well. I mean, the Prime Minister's an act of integrity, I think, over the last week, being calm, measured under pressure, you know, letting the facts get out first before rushing to conclusions. Some countries did rush to conclusions, but Poland, who've been the main, main victims of this.
That's the Polish Prime Minister for you.
Yeah, they've all
out
been
there.
very well. They've handled this all extremely well, and yeah, fair play to them.
Mateusz Morawiecki, I think his name is the Polish Prime Minister who's been involved with this.
I suspect there's a lot of sympathy. It's not like Ukraine have done this multiple times, put put missile in Poland territory. You obviously feel sorry for the two people that got killed, but they're given the benefit of the doubt on this because it appears accidental and using their own defence. So, and it just didn't intend to go off into Poland territory. So, yeah, I mean, obviously the defence systems worked, but it just went the wrong way. So, yeah, it's not as bad as we think. That's the main thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, but I have to say as well, when you look at all this news here of the war, like so far, senior UN official on Friday welcomed the extension for months of a deal aimed at easing global food shortages in Ukraine by setting up agricultural works. That's also been like in the spotlight recently. Russian state RIOTI Novety news agencies reported that a school was struck by a Ukrainian fire in the occupied region of Donetsk, one of the areas of Ukraine that Russian Federation claims to have annexed. That was Alishka Karemulin saying that. Someone who apparently is a Russian, should I say, a Russian governor, or in a Ukrainian
propagandist.
Yes, basically a Ukrainian propagandist there as well. Winter's first snow fell in Kiev on Thursday, while authorities said they were working to restore power nationwide. That came after multiple missile strikes on Wednesday. About nearly 100 missiles on Wednesday were launched at Russian cities, including Kiev, where the city fell without power. I have to say that was a vile and wicked act of terrorism from the Russian president. We'll come on to that in a minute. The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the US has seen so far that contradicts Poland's preliminary assessment. Ukrainian air defences were to blame for Tuesday's missile incident. US President Joe Biden disputed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's comment that the missiles landing in Poland were not Ukrainian origin, saying there's not the evidence suggested. So, as well, it is very interesting to say that. So, what have you made so far this week, though? It's that horrifying day on Wednesday when Russia launched their missiles into Ukrainian cities.
Yeah, and I think as obviously as well, it's clear to see what's going on. I mean, we've obviously talked today about the Nord Stream 2 pipeline as well. I mean, it looks like that's been classed as a deliberate act from what prosecutors are saying as well, and people with intelligence. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the Russians blew their own Nord Stream, to be honest. It's not out of the realm. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of them, quite to be frankly. If it was a deliberate act, then don't rule out them self-destructing their own Nord Stream to, get energy leverage. It's just, it's so yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. So, yeah.
It's been dangerous what they're doing there in Ukraine this week. I feel for all. I don't even know how many people they've been killed or how many people have been injured. It was a pretty horrifying image to watch because obviously Ukraine had Kherson basically recaptured last week, and did Putin do this as like revenge or something?
I honestly think it was a revenge. I mean, there's probably no other way to say that, really, to be honest. As I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they managed to self-destruct their own thing to, blame the others. And yeah, we know how the Russian playbook goes on this one, I'm afraid.
Yeah, not ideal if you ask me. So that's all I can say from the Russian invasion of Ukraine. More on that will follow in the coming days. As well, moving on now to something I want to talk about tonight, which is BBC Children in Need. Now, tonight on my show is BBC Children in Need. Children in Need is a charity that helps support young people who, or young children who are actually living in very poor conditions, and children as well who have very severe learning disabilities. Now, I take at heart that I have a disability myself, and I recognise myself as someone with a disability. But we want to recognise children across the world who have been suffering with very severe disabilities that need the most help. And that is what this charity is about. It's about raising money to those who need help the most. Now, on this show, I really want to help bring children together in any way possible and making sure that children's stories are told. So I'm going to play for you a story of this was an old children need story and one that I really wanted to share. This is a story of someone called Erin, who I'm about to play for you now. Children in Need was supporting Erin through her cancer treatment in 2021. Have a listen to this.
This is Jack's den in Livingston.
And if Shane panicked like that, obviously it must have been one of the big fears. So, we moved 2 stars, we did a lot of ones.
In the space of a week, she was diagnosed with cancer. She had a Wilms tumour, which was a solid tumour on her kidney, and she would need chemotherapy and surgery and possibly radiotherapy because she had lung metastases as well. Almost immediately, Erin began a relentless course of treatment. It was just really hard seeing her because she was really starting to develop her personality and she just closed down.
She stopped drinking, she stopped eating. It's like somebody pressed pause. She had no energy all of a sudden.
And when we were at home, she would just sit curled up next to me on the couch. Emotionally, she was very withdrawn. Jack's den was just such a great space to have. It gave her the chance to play with other kids without hair and with nasal tubes and all the rest of it, and to go, oh, I'm not that different. There are other kids out there. And then because of COVID, we were advised to shield. They did craft sessions, there was game sessions, lots of different things to keep you feeling part of something. I think they probably saved my sanity.
It's your last ever medicine.
Yeah, this is amazing.
Yay! Well done to us. Coming out of cancer treatment into the world would have been difficult anyway. It was really difficult in a global pandemic. She'd spent most part of a year with one of us being at her side 24/7. Literally, we were sleeping on her floor. Apart from her sister, she wasn't getting to interact with children, and socially, she was just very anxious. How are you feeling today? Because of your support, Team Jack can be there to help children with anxiety.
Are you scared?
No, you're not
You're not sad.
The worry group at Jack's Den gives them strategies for coping with worries and somewhere to talk about it in a safe place.
This is worry monster. It's from Jack's Den. He eats our worries. He's feeling a bit tired.
They don't say cured, but she has no evidence of cancer. Just now, she will be a patient for life.
This is my first ever teddy bear.
She's doing really well. She's just turning into a really confident young girl, and it's so nice to see.
I have 2 more toys I take to the hospital.
Team Jack just understood what her needed and was able to just give her a little bit of joy.
He's asleep.
Thank you there to BBC Children Need there for sharing the story of Erin, who unfortunately has had a very difficult journey with cancer. All I can say is that I hope she is on a good recovery. I hope she's on the road to recovery. That's all I can say. I mean, unfortunately, we're having issues with Zach's mic at the moment.
I'm here.
Oh, Zach is back now.
I just put myself on mute there. To be fair.
No, Zach, what did you make to that story of Erin after her difficult journey with cancer, and what do you think Children Need represents to, in general, every single child across the world?
Well, that story, that was in some ways just kicking the back to hear also getting cancer, and it's just awful. Cancer is cancer on us. It's and all the research and development that we need to do to find some way to like prevent it is just crucial, obviously. So yeah, it's horrible. Children in need represent so much to people. It's just, every little penny donation just, goes into many good causes and helps many different companies do many different things. And, it's just so helpful. It represents the best of us. It represents those who really need it, those it could be dedicated elsewhere. It's a UK-wide thing. And it's just, helps children across the UK. It's just so important that we invest in every child as possible, whether you're young, whether you're starting, whether you're just little kids. It's just represents the best of us. And getting all those donations is crucial. The millions of pounds that are donated every year to help children who really do need it. It's just so crucial. And it's such a good cause as well. With all the Pudsey as well. It's just the Pudsey still remains. He's such an iconic character as well. Behind it, it's just incredible. I used to do all these children need things at school, and it was a very fun day. It always used to be a very fun day for all of us, and it was so enjoyable. There it is, by the way. Are they this week? Oh no, that was a few years.
Yeah, they are.
That was a few years ago because they got the mask on. So, but yeah, that was a good weekend to do it. If you want to be nice and explain it all, but yeah, there's been a lot of things going on for charity. I mean, one of them was the Scott Mills treadmill, which I remember quite well. He did it for 24 hours going running on a treadmill. Her legs must have hurt, but he was joined by various different celebrities throughout, getting himself motivated, keeping himself running on that treadmill. I hate the gym as it is, and I can't imagine myself running 24 hours on a treadmill. My legs would literally be falling off whilst I'd be on the last slippy sloppy of them. But fair play, he's raised a lot of money. Scotty has. Well done. That was a pretty good effort.
The telethon is actually on BBC One if you want to catch up on it. BBC One for the telethon. Presenters will all be doing various things. Strictly Come Dancing, several stuff. And that is actually back tomorrow at the Blackpool Tower Ballroom at a slightly later time as well. So, very interesting to hear that. Moving on now, I just want to quickly touch on one other thing before we move on and quickly do the sports. Zach, I'm going to move over to the United States now. Republican Party in for a bit of a warfare now between Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump, because according to a speech the other day, Donald Trump reckons he's ready to stand and run in 2024, and it looks all but certain now.
He is running, and he's definitely running now. I mean, he's been teasing it for a few weeks, or for months, actually, to be fair. It's been blatantly obvious that once he got kicked out of office, he's going to run again. And yes, he's running again. Now, obviously, the American public would have known him by now, knowing his record and what hero he is. I don't think they'll be as kind to him this time as previously before. He's been run twice before. He's won one. He's lost the other, despite what he says. A third time, nah, in my view. I mean, I know it's 2 years out yet, but surely can't do it in 2 years. Surely he can't do it a third time. Surely, not with me. I mean, he's damaged the swing vote. Swing voters. He's damaged the reputation of the swing voter. He's damaged the voters with independents. The only thing that he has is the hardcore Republican base, which is obviously big, but it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and it's becoming a minority now these days as well. Some good news for Republicans. They have retook the House this week. They are currently, I believe, on 219, but they're likely to be anything between 220 and 222. But that's not going to be a big majority. And the likes of Andy Biggs and Matt Gaetz of Florida has come out and saying they will not support Kevin McCarthy for Speaker. That is going to be interesting. There was I think he won the results by 180 odds to about 30 more, 30 against for speakership. So Kevin McCarthy has got the top role in the GOP. But at the moment, where he becomes speakers and other things, if 31 voted against him in the original election, how many are actually going to vote against him when it comes to speaker? Because Andy Biggs come out against him, Kevin McCarthy. I'm sorry, not Kevin McCarthy. Matt Gaetz come out against him is definite. So, yeah, it's not looking promising for us. So he's going to have to work for those votes. And speaking of news, in terms of speakers, wow, from one historic reign to the other. I mean, we're going to be having a new speaker soon, and we're going to say bow out to Nancy Pelosi. 20 years as Democrat House leader.
Wow.
Whatever your politics are, it's an astonishing achievement that she's lasted 20 years in the job and has called it a day. I mean, honestly, whatever you think, she's going to be remembered for a long, long time. She's been the first Madam Speaker of the House of Representatives, history making then as well. Very popular in the party. She knew when she had the votes, she had the votes. Where 100% every time she said that, you knew she had the votes. And she honestly came with some iconic moments. Standing up to Trump when she was in a meeting, ripping her paper up, copy the speech at the State of the Union, saying that he wanted to kill Donald Trump after the January 6th insurrection. There's just so much memorable things about Nancy Pelosi. She's obviously going to be missed in Democratic circles, no doubt about it. But it appears the likely of success is going to be Hakeem Jeffries of New York. He'll probably, if what it looks like going to be a unanimous decision to put him off, to put him as the Democratic minority leader, he'll be the first black leader of the Democratic House Party. It looks like his other team will include Catherine Clark as the whip deputy, as the minority whip, and Pete Allegra as the House conference chairman, which is, it's a generation from 80-year-olds in charge to 50-year-olds in the Democratic caucus. Obviously, nothing's changed in the Senate wise. We expect the likes of Chuck Schumer's going to be unanimously re-elected as majority leader, and Patty Murphy's going to be the third in line now. So yeah, it's a big change in Democratic Party politics coming for the Democrats as well. And today, and we're going to have an interesting few years, because today it's been announced that there's going to be a special counsel investigating Donald Trump in the aftermath of January 6th and his Mar-a-Lago raid as well. Remember the FBI raid in Mar-a-Lago? There's going to be a special counsel now led by a former attorney, Jack Smith, who's going to investigate whether there should be criminal charges against the former president and any other associates as well for the role of the Mar-a-Lago, whether he obstructed investigation of the Mar-a-Lago raid or classified documents, and whether he used obstruction of justice to stop the January 6th results. So, yeah, this is going to be very interesting. Donald Trump's still going to be in the spotlight for the next 2 years, and maybe beyond, who knows? But, yeah, this is going to be, I think, a messy 118th Congress in the House of Representatives. I'm sure of that. It's going to be a very messy 2 years ahead with House Republican majority, but only by a slim margin. And the question is whether Kevin McCarthy has the votes to be Speaker and the Donald Trump investigations. And what will the president change in his approach as well? It'll be very interesting to see.
Oh, I thought So, Speaker of the House of Representatives, it's going to be interesting to see how the United States get on with a potential Republican speaker taking the helm. Well, it's going to be
Well,
interesting.
which one?
I hope. So let's hope. With Kevin McCarthy, what will he bring to leader of the House of? Well, should I say the House leader of the House in America, the representative? Let's see if he gets elected first. He should be elected according to the the midterm there. So yeah, very interesting indeed. All I can say, guys, is we're going to move on now and do the sport briefing. Time now for a chat on Formula One. Now, last weekend we had the Brazilian Grand Prix where Mercedes George Russell took his maiden Grand Prix victory. Well done to Mercedes for a 1-2 finish today. Practice was over. Verstappen was quickest once he got in the car, and Mercedes pretty close behind. Russell was only a few tenths off, but that is a bit far when you look at Verstappen dominating most of this season. Now, Zach, what did you make to last week's frantic Brazilian Grand Prix?
Frantic was one word. I mean, chaotic was another. I mean, yes, it was eventful. Let's just say that at the start, it was eventful. A few crashes as well. We saw K-Mag, who went from hero to zero with that little spin he got with Ricardo. Obviously, this is the last weekend for Ricardo in Formula One. Maybe a Red Bull reserve driver for next year, by the sounds of what the reporting is. Interestingly. But yeah, it was an eventful start of K-Mag, Ricardo colliding, Leclerc and Norris colliding as well. Leclerc came back actually to finish in the top 5. And then there was a lot of fights going on. Red Bull as well, particularly George Russell's first ever win, by the way. Well done. He absolutely deserved that. He dominated the race and stayed out of trouble and pretty much played a team game. Red Bull, though, I mean, come on. 6th and 7th for Verstappen, Perez. Verstappen refusing to let Perez by in the last lap, ignoring team orders. He gave his reasons, and there was a bit of a public, pretty much a spat after the race. Some would say it was retaliation against Perez for probably what he did in Monaco. I don't know what that was about, but I have to say it got to a boiling point where people's families were involved. There was abuses online, social media, very unacceptable. As well, and all the talk was what's the relationship like between Verstappen and Perez now? Well, it looks like it's calmed down for now a little bit. Let's just say that. So that's good. This is the final weekend, but so hopefully that relationship has cooled down now. Yeah, the Mercedes won too with Russell, Hamilton, Sainz in third. Good result for him, by the way. He drove very well considering circumstances. Lost his tyres well. Leclerc 4th, Alonso very good race, 5th position. Verstappen 6th, Perez 7th, poor race for Red Bull. Ocon was 8th, Bottas 9th. Lance Stroll got top 10 as well. Well done. Vettel 11th, Joe Guanyu 12th, Mick Schumacher in 13th, Gasly 14th, Albon 15th, Latifi 16th, Tsunoda 17th. Norris had an engine failure in 18th, K-Mag 19th, Daniel Ricciardo 20th. This weekend, Charlie, is the last race of the season. It is, I could say it's a celebration of the season. We're not going to have the antics of last year. We'll remember that race. Some might not be want to remind of that one, but it's the last race of the season. It's the last ever race for Sebastian Vettel in Formula One as well. He is bound out into the world of retirement after the race as well. Let's see if he can finish on the high. There's also going to be a few changes. This is also the last race for Daniel Ricciardo, as I said. Oscar Piastri coming in to replace him as well. And this week, as well, is announced Mick Schumacher out as well.
Nico Hulkenberg is in at Haas for next year.
I mean, yeah, pretty impressive, you have to say. Hulken back, if you want to use the term as well. But yeah, Mick Schumacher looks like he's out. And Latifi's also his last race as well this season, moving on to other things. And it was also Alonso's moving to Aston Martin as well. Last race at Alpine. Last race at AlphaTauri for Pierre Gasly. Off to Alpine as well. There's lots to move, lots of goodbyes to be done. Yeah, it's just a race of celebration, to be honest, as well. And yeah, we're gonna have a long off. We're gonna have a really long off season now. At the end of the season, who knows? We're gonna be started back up in early March again. So yeah, it's gonna be the last race of the season. Disappointing as we know, but yeah. It's a chance to all celebrate the season and for drivers to finish off on a high.
And also, Formula One will launch its all-female championship with Formula One Academy to help women drivers progress through the motorsport ranks. Stefano Melicali said the series will give the best chance to fulfil their ambition, and it will subside £131,000 payment. Drivers will still need to add the same amount again to complete. The calendar has not been announced, but one of the races is likely to take place at a Grand Prix. So, very interesting, to say the least. With that,
I think it's good. Yeah, I think it's good, but in some ways, it's kind of think, what's the point of W Series? I know W Series had to end a little bit early this season, but it's kind of going direct competition now. And I thought we're sort of splitting the women's sport a bit. Are we going to go for W Series now, or are we looking to the guys in the F1 Academy? I think that's the only problem. It sort of splits the rank of deciding which is the best order now. I don't really want to see W Series go direct competition, but yeah, we know there's a reason why W Series really to be ended early, to be honest. But you know, I'm not sure about this. I think it's a good idea on principle, but two women's sports against each other, I'm not sure about that.
It is interesting. Now it's time for the football news now, because the World Cup takes place next week with big matches. Actually, World Cup actually starts on Sunday, with England playing on Monday against Iran in our first match. But this weekend was dominated by Cristiano Ronaldo's interview with Piers Morgan on Talk TV, where the Manchester United player slammed his club and says he wants to leave Manchester United. Well, I'm no football expert, or trust me, I don't really watch football that much. But Sam, what did you make to that interview, and also the World Cup preparations for Ronaldo?
Well, I have to say that was pretty explosive. No doubt about it. That was a very explosive interview. I mean, in some ways, looking at it, he's obviously spoken out. I mean, fair play if he wants to speak about his personal experiences, and some of it was, pretty sad to hear. Then that's absolutely fine. But in terms of Manchester United's reputation, he's absolutely trashed them in that interview. Absolutely trashed them. I kind of think in some ways as well, is he trying to get out of Manchester United so easily? He probably is. He's probably trying to find the easy way out. With all the drama, refusing to come on against Spurs and everything like that, all the behind the scenes of gossip and what's happening. He's looking for a way out. I mean, it goes back far, 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 whether he was looking for a way out. He revealed Manchester City was interested in him. There was a Qatari, I think it was a Saudi team that was interested. He'd be paid millions of dollars or whatever the amount was. He gets paid to do that, get cashed in by the Qatar of the Saudis and everything like that. Obviously, he talked about family experiences and obviously lost the baby son. Obviously, it was a painful experience to him as well. But he really did trash Manchester United's reputation on a television with Piers Morgan. And he obviously chose Piers Morgan to do it as well. I should point out that the television rating shot up when that interview did as well. I mean, it was like airing like 20,000 Monday and Tuesday, and then we got to yesterday's interviews. It was like 200,000, 300,000 of television ratings. It was pretty good for Piers, given the fact that it got a lot of attention, and rightly so. Let's just say this: Cristiano Ronaldo ain't going to be at Manchester United very longer. United came out with comments today saying that we're going to initiate appropriate steps with their legal team to see what the first steps are. Given the interview, that now we've got the whole 90-minute thing come out. It's a mess. Ronaldo will be out United sooner than later, I think, and I think he's forced his way out using that he could have gone out in the quiet and just celebrate his last days there in January, but he wants to go out with a bang. He's got all the centre of attention, slagging off Gary Neville, slagging off Wayne Rooney. Yeah, he's took no prisoners in that interview, certainly as well. And has it damaged his own reputation? Maybe it has. He's a good on-field player, but has his personality been affected by this? I wonder. Who knows?
Oh, it's going to be interesting. You can watch that interview now on Talk TV's YouTube channel. Piers Morgan Uncensored, Cristiano Ronaldo interview there. Playing up. The World Cup will begin, as I said, in a few days' time as well. So look forward to all the matches. There will be a World Cup report next week on my show. Moving on now to Charlie's good news. And, of course, we all know what this means for gossip time in the camp. It is I'm a Celebrity back. I will not tell you who the first elimination is yet,
It's not on yet.
Speaking of which, I haven't actually watched the show, so there you go.
Yeah, they haven't had it yet.
So we'll keep up to date. But here we go, guys. Here is the most important time you've all been waiting for all the week.
Nowhere to hide here, and I'm 70.
Woo!
Yeah, that's what we're here for.
We love the music. Hey! I just groove to the music for like a few seconds while for Oh, what a week!
Right, let's go over I'm a Celebrity's news this week and what's been happening in the camp. Well, for Matt Hancock, the MP, should I say, Conservative MP, got camp leader, and boy, Matt Hancock pretty much made himself a president of the camp by sitting on a royal chair as if he was prime minister of the jump. Yes, Matt Hancock assigned tasks to campmates to complete this week. Charlene was made as his deputy, Charlene White from ITV. However, though, Charlene's week didn't go plain sailing when she was meant to sleep in the RV, discovered a spider was in there and refused to sleep in there. And then the other day broke up on a cooking task where where Owen and Charlotte were basically cooking a dish that they won the other night with the 8 stars that they won in the Scareground trial as well. It has been a week of interesting developments. Mike Tyndall getting himself strapped up with green ants. Jill Scott, the lioness, being spun around in what looked to be a giant little incinerator with some spiders or whatever. And Owen Warner basically had the slideshow spin of his life in a fairground trial.
It was.
Where he was throwing balls into a bucket. Honestly, it looked like he competed in a crash test dummy competition there as well, did Owen Warner. But the week, Matt Hancock had quite a week on the trial front, letting the rest of the celebrities done tonight, Boy George and Charlene White, take on a horrible trial where you are underwater with critters and you try and get the stars before that. Oh, this is going to be interesting. Now, me and Zach are going to predict who we think the first to leave the camp is. I'm going to certainly make my prediction, say it's either Chris or Charlene. And we're going to rate some of the campmates' performances. But Zach, what have you made to this week's I'm a Celebrity gossip?
Interesting. Certainly interesting as well. I have to say, on certainly the challenges, the celebrities aren't as good this year. Maybe because it's gone back to normal or anything like that. Because when I've watched like the 2 series in Wales and anything like that, everyone seemed to complete the tasks, no matter how much difficulty, pretty well. Like, well, not the last few ones. I'm not going to spoil tonight's one, obviously, because we hadn't aired yet. But like the last few ones, they really struggled to get the stars they needed. Like some of them got 2, like the other night, and then the other day we got 8. That was pretty good, to be fair, out of 11. But the rest of it, they've been struggling to get the stars. And they ended up with quite horrible food for camp. I mean, wasn't it a crocodile's leg they got the other day because they won one star for food? And the last thing you want to do with a lack of food is get 1 star. I mean, yeah. Imagine eating a crocodile's leg. How would vegetarians be able to eat that? That would be awful. I wouldn't be able. Do you think I would be able? No, I wouldn't be able to eat a crocodile's leg, to be honest, as well. But yeah. There's also, Matt Hancock is now the camp leader, which is the first time he's ever been elected as leader in his whole entire political life. To be honest, and it's based in Australia rather than the United Kingdom. So yeah, he's been leading the camp. Charlene's been kind of like the deputy. It's fun. You actually got like an MP and a journalist on the top web. It's not a bad pairing, and one can keep another one in up to account and everything like that. But yeah, it's been a good week certainly as well. They've had a lot of fun games. Keyshot Cleo is still Kevin. Is it Kevin now? Or is it the Australian version?
Kevin is now is now the new.
It's not
Outback.
Yeah.
It's not Outback Shack. The Outback Shack decided to shut down, and he's now cycling around with a little stall.
Cycling. Yeah.
I saw him and it was like, wow, he's cycling around the camp with a stall. And mind you, they did foul the Deals on Wheels challenge the other week for the first time I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I believe what happened. But yeah, honestly though, They have been winning a couple of treats this week. But it was the troll yesterday night. I mean, my favourite trial of the week had to be the sliming one. Like the one when I got
that was
slimed.
good.
That
Yeah.
was Who Wants to Be Silly on That. That was such a funny trial watching that being slimed on a camera. But Matt Hancock got absolutely covered in it. Trust me. Honestly, it was like politicians getting done to do this. But my actual trial the other week that I think has been really good was that fairground one the other days. That when they were all where Owen, Jill, and Mike were taking part in that. That was quite fun. All being spun around in there.
Yeah, absolutely it was. It was pretty much fun. Yeah, imagine it's not quite Adventure Island, is it? It's not quite, you don't get quite the experience of Adventure Island or Fort Park being this, you have to get all the horrible effects rather than the waterfalls and everything like that. You get all the horrible animal effects that are in it as well. It's not horrible. There is elimination tonight. As you're probably aware, there is elimination tonight. Who will be the first one to go, I wonder? I know they've not been had an appetite for voting, Matt in trials and everything like that. I wonder if the Great British public will have an appetite in voting to get out of the jungle.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be quite ironic if he's the shortest rival in the jungle, really. Apart from Olivia Atwood, who was understandably had to pull out for medical reasons. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see who gets eliminated tonight. Charlene, it could be one of the Boy George potentially. Who knows? They've been all gumming up the changes
Or
recently.
Chris even.
Chris could all go in the first couple of days, really. To be honest, someone who I don't see is going is Jill Scott. I can't see Bubba Tunde going, or Mike Tyndall or Sue. Sean probably will stay as well. That's my guess as well. I'll probably be one between George, Mike, and Chris. I can see it. It'd probably be Boy George, maybe Matt, maybe Chris. So who knows? I think it'll probably be between one of them.
They probably just say to Matt they want to vote him out because he's a politician. That's what they're all gonna say. They're all gonna say, "Oh, the politician's gone in there and he's not an MP." I mean, to be honest with you, he like what he said, what he done during the pandemic with the care home crisis, the answers he gave as well during some of those questions to Charlene, a bit questionable. I still felt like the whole Matt Hancock hadn't been the mask was slipping off his face when he was answering questions. I mean, Zach, he has had a rough ride over these last year because obviously with the allegations of him resigning, then the lockdown parties, and then of course as well with him entering I'm a Celeb. Matt Hancock has had a very tough period over the last year for the Conservative Party, and he's brought him down a lot, hasn't he, for West Suffolk?
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt. I mean, he was good in the early stages, and then he, once he got through the bit of it, the stuff that he got caught on camera and everything like that, and the protect the rings on the care home, absolute stuffer of a quote, and some of the PPE contracts that were sent out, it just became a lot periodically worse throughout the pandemic. I suppose the one way to get voted out of office is to get rid of him tonight, or my celebrity. But whether the public do kick him out of office, another thing. So who knows? We'll see after tonight's first. It'll be done within the next half an hour. I obviously ain't going to give anything away. I've got my TV on. I've got it in the background. I'm watching. But I ain't going to give it anything away until you watched it, Charlie, tonight.
Yeah, I can safely assume that that's what I'll be doing, watching it tonight. Well. Well, this is one of the videos I'm going to actually play for you guys. Is the campmates enjoying a sing along of Boy George's "Come a Comedian" the other night? Have a listen to it.
Oh God, yeah.
What could life be without a song or dance or a week? So I say thank you for the music, for giving it to me. I know these songs, but I had to ask the Don, come on, bro, give us just the first verse and the chorus. Come on, bro, you know the song. There's a love in your eyes every day. If If I listen to your lies, you would say I'm a man without conviction. I'm a man who doesn't know how to say a contradiction. You come and go. You come and go. I'm a chameleon. You come and go. You come and go. Love is easy because like my dreams, red, gold, and green. Red, gold, and green. I said,
George, you are a legend. Thank you. Come a chameleon. Boy George, by the fire. I just thanked him and said, wow, thanks so much for that moment. That was amazing.
Thank you there to Boy George with Come a Chameleon. Will he be getting that tonight in the trial? We don't know. And of course, Anton Deck on air gaps. When they don't mention the word Come a Chameleon, they're getting their little recorders out and singing it.
Yeah.
So, yes. Oh, I certainly love Come a Chameleon. Maybe you should download it on an 80s playlist.
Yeah. Not bad.
My little gaffs there from I'm a Celebrity. Anyway, now it's time for the look at today's papers, where newspaper headlines greet you all tonight. And I will refresh the page because there's probably more papers already out now. Let's have a look. Well, the Daily Mail has gone with fan fury as Qatar Royals ban beer ahead of the World Cup. World Cup fiasco, stadium fiasco after U-turn, 48 hours before kickoff, but VIPs will still be allowed to drink champagne and fine wines. I mean, come on, really? What is this? Tory MP in the also as well in. Oh, hold on, am I reading the right papers here? That was the Daily Star.
Yeah, no, you are.
That was the Daily Mail. Sorry, and the Financial Times goes for Tory MPs hit out at Hunt's tax rises of fears of an election rout. The iWeekend goes for Treasury warns that Number 10's plan to cut migration to UK means workers will have higher taxes. The Independent goes for Hunt told to come clean on non-dom tax losses. Experts say the abolishing loophole would raise extra £3 billion a year. Daily Telegraph goes Sunak, my fears, safety of women. Or as well, that comes as a picture there was found of Zara Alenia, 35, as an aspiring lawyer, was stamped to death by John McSweeney, 28, who had 28 convictions for 69 separate offences. That was in the Daily Telegraph. The Times goes with Met Chief, it should be easier to sack police. As well, Daily Express goes, it gets worse, Christmas turkey prices soaring. The Daily Star goes for smooth finishes. Here we go. Start with the World Cup stars waxing legs to cope with the heat in Qatar. And finally, the Mirror goes, World Cup shocker. They all think it's a sobber. It's now fans' fury at the last minute booze ban in Qatar. Zach, what do you make to the latest newspaper headlines?
Some interesting puns on there as well. Right, I start with Independent actually. Hunter told to come clean on non-dom tax loss. I have to say, this is something I don't understand. Why did they not target? It's probably one of the easiest taxes to target. Like non-doms are, to play it in simple terms, that if you're overseas, and you live a UK resident, you kind of don't pay your taxes basically. In some ways, you live in another country where you claim non-dom, you don't pay your taxes here, but you live somewhere else, so you're still UK resident, but you just live somewhere else. £3 billion a year has gone to waste, really, as well. I honestly think, they should have at least raised, get non-doms scrapped as well, so that you actually raise £3 billion a year. It's quite interesting that didn't happen. It's an easy thing for Labour to attack as well, like non-doms, because Rishi Sunak's claimed non-dom in the past. Pretty simple. Rishi Sunak has, in many ways, claimed non-dom in the past. He admitted it. So it's an easy tack for the Labour Party. It's something that's strange that they didn't go on anyway, as well. So the Daily Telegraph, interestingly, goes for My fears of the safety is women. PM says wife and daughters are emotional motivation with starts on crime. So he's obviously written it in the Telegraph, talking about his, the fact that he wants to crack down on crime and anything like that. It's pretty good as well. In fairness, as well. I mean, that's quite an easy target. I mean, under the Conservatives, crime has gone up. Pretty simple. I mean, you may say, well, there's more police officers in some ways over the last few years. Good, but trouble is, crime's going up. You get less convictions and not good enough in many ways. As well,
Isn't that happening in London? Because some people then say, okay, and I'm sorry to get this out to all the listeners on my show, but with a lot of people have said to the Mayor of London, okay, Sadiq Khan, obviously being an opposite party Labour, they've said, oh, crime's soaring out of control and stuff like that. So surely this bears the blame for both parties. I think that crime is one of the most important issues that needs to be addressed nationwide.
Yeah, I agree as well. Certainly, crime's got to be a big issue and everything like that. As well, it's a huge issue. There's no doubt about it, and it needs to be sorted in as many ways as well. I mean, yes, that needs to be sorted. As well is pretty clear. Also, interestingly as well, the Telegraph goes as well. Council tax bill set to double for second homeowners. Now, obviously, council tax increases are quite bad for the ordinary person, and these 5% increases are pretty bad. But if it's on second homeowners and they're not using the house, fair enough. I agree with that one. There's no doubt about it as well. I pretty much agree with that one. It's a pretty, if you go in a second home, and you're not using it, you should be paying more tax on it. It's just, it's just property that at the end of the day, is going to West and everything like that. So yeah, right. I'm just going to get my drink and then I'll come back, Charlie, if that's all right with you, and then you can go through the rest of them as well.
I will go through some of the other headlines whilst I'm here. Now, the Met Police Chief said it should be easier to sack police. Now, 500-yard officers of serious misconduct. Now, I have to say, I mean, this is a shocking development because do you not remember Cressida Dick, who was the chairman of the Met Police? She resigned over handling of the Sarah Everard Virgil last year. The police, by the way, arrested people who claimed it was a peaceful protest. It was overzealous police who, in my view, need to start really policing this country properly if they're not sitting around digging into the culture wars by having a drink or dancing around to, I don't know, the Macarena or something like that. Police officers must be dealt with rightly. I don't know what that comment is. I mean, police reform is so important. We need to be treating police officers with respect. So that's the Times there. The Daily Express goes, but it gets worse. Christmas turkey prices soaring. Oh, my God. Turkey prices are going up. Clearly, there's an issue with supermarkets there that need to get the right price of turkey in, because obviously Turkey's original price probably only got about 20p due to the government's new tax increases. So I'll be very interested to see exactly what that has. What do you say to those papers quickly?
Yeah, I mean, the Met one is, it's pretty simple. If you're in the Met and you're an idiot, basically, and, you got serious misconduct, you should be sacked. Unfortunately for the Metropolitan Police, there's a whole, 500, it says of them. It's full of them. It's unforgivable that there's 500 of them that have been done for serious misconduct. It's unforgivable that they've been allowed to go through this process, right? Okay, come police officers, then be an idiot in office and commit.
Should be sacked. Simple as that.
Yeah, it should be. The fact that there's so many of them, it's just what makes it so terrible, isn't it? It makes you why the Met Police can't be trusted most of the time, because there's just so much of this criminal acts in office. It's honestly 500 of them is not how a police should be run. That really is quite simple. It's a terrible idea. That there's even 500 of them even in there. The Express, it gets worse. Christmas turkey prices soaring. Yeah, I mean, food inflation is still going up. And Christmas turkeys is obviously going to be one of them. That's going to have a huge price increase. You're going to feel the brunt of that, no doubt about it. Yeah. I'm a vegetarian, so I don't eat turkey, unfortunately. To be fair, I don't know whether to do vegetarian turkeys, but I suppose in some ways it probably would be delicious in what they do. But one thing, I won't have an ordinary turkey for Christmas. It's not me being woke or anything like that. But it's just I don't, obviously my choice is I don't eat meat and anything like that. So it's understandable why that I don't eat turkey. Daily Star goes for a very interesting headline. Here we go. And obviously the World Cup's held in Qatar. Lots of bad reasons why that's the case. Obviously, one because of the human rights record of Qatar, no doubt about it. The LGBTQ treatments of them, the way they treat migrant workers, they're low paid, they're high hours. It's basically a form of slavery what they do in Qatar. It's horrible, and the fact that people have died actually working is just simply the only reason why they got that country is because of corruption, and the fact that it's so hot in the winter means they couldn't hold it in the summer. It's pretty simple. I don't know why they even went there in the first place. Some would say, well, you go there to raise the issues, but why go there in the first place if you know the issues still exist? You're not working towards it. It's pretty simple. But World Cup stars waxing their legs to cope with the heat. If that's what they're having to do to stop them getting all damaging bodies and everything like that. I'm not a body expert, but yeah, then that's awful. And another issue as well, I mean, the Mirror talked about this as well. They go in the headline, they think it's all sober with a reference to what happened in 1966, and they think it's all over with the big extra time 4-1 goal. That was the icon for World Cup victories. This one they think it's also referencing to the ban on alcohol in stadiums. This is awkward in some ways because Budweiser, an alcoholic beer, is sponsoring the World Cup, and they can't have their sales. Quite frankly, all the Budweisers are banned from the World Cup. I mean, that's very awkward. Imagine being a sponsor of a World Cup that you can't even have their own beers. You're not allowed their presence there. It kind of I don't know why Budweiser even bothered, to be honest, about it. But yeah, this is, I suppose, for the fans that do drink, this is a completely ridiculous U-turn that they've done. I think it's some way send a bit of a message saying no alcoholic beer. You're going to act like idiots in stadiums, then not interested. But the fact they've done this 2 days before the World Cup starts is pretty bad, to be honest. Quite frankly, I think I don't mind people drinking 1 or 2, as I know, but the fact they've done it 2 days before the World Cup is pretty bad. It's not good. I suppose there's a lot of fans that are out there to have a little beer and celebrate the team as well. But, I suppose in the UK, there'll be a lot of pubs that be filling out here. I don't know how many pubs they're going to be filling out, to be honest, because the World Cup interest this year as well, whilst it's big, it doesn't feel the same when it's in Qatar, quite frankly. Given the fact, as I said, human rights records, culture of misery for LGBTQ people, obviously bad treatment of migrants, death penalties, treatment of women, all those sort of things, and the fact that you can't even have a bit of alcohol. I mean, yeah, it's a very bad culture in Qatar. No wonder why they're furious. Fan furious Qatar rules ban beers, we know. World Cup fiasco after U-turn 48 hours before kickoff, but VIPs are still allowed to cheap champagne and fine wines. Yeah, exactly. The rich and powerful can get all the posh drinks and all that sort of thing, whilst they're sitting there earning £150,000 a day or whatever. But we are the ordinary fan car is just hypocrisy. It's a globalist. I'm not going to use that term. It's an elitist disgrace, quite frankly. I want to call it globalist disgrace. That's a bit bad, but I think it's more of a elitist disgrace, if anything, as well. I think it's just really, really. I don't understand what they even think in the Qatari officials. Quite frankly, if you're gonna at least drink, allow drinking, you should have announced it in the first place. I don't get it. I really don't. That was a bad idea, personally. Let's go to the Financial Times here. Tory MP hit out Hunt's tax rise amid fears of election rout. IMS hails physical prudence, wage stagnation worse since 1820. Inflation remains a risk as well, but a lot of criticism for Jeremy Hunt as well for the tax rises in that budget as well. I'm sorry, autumn statement as well. Some of the field duty will probably get attention. The actual council taxes as well, and some of the other ones that really going to harm small businesses. He's going to get attention in the next few weeks. So no matter about it as well. And I also have to say as well is that some of these spending cuts are being held back to 2025. Now, I don't know whether this is election bribery going on display here, but there's obviously, I get the feeling that Tories feel like they're not going to be in an election in 2025, so they're just going to punt it to the next Labour government to sort out whatever as well. So, yeah, they're obviously trying to be strategic on these spending cuts as well. And speaking of the I weekend, Treasury warns that number 10 plan to cut migration to UK will mean higher taxes. So another battle between number 10 and the Home Office on this one. The Chancellor and Treasury officials believe the government aims to cut net migration result in even more higher taxes or deeper spending cuts. So yeah, that's interesting. That will probably enrage Suella Braverman in some ways because Suella Braverman is probably running this operation of reducing immigration. Sunak's probably on the same page as Braverman on this page. And yet Treasury officials are sort of saying, this is a bad idea. If you're getting less immigration, we can't fill the holes. We're not going to be able to fill all those holes. It means less economic activity. And, if less economic activity equals higher taxes and, higher prices for us as a country. So, yeah, it's interesting on that one. So, yeah, that's the weekend. That is the papers for tomorrow.
Yeah, very, very interesting, to say the least now, at the moment. I've just read up some news breaking because I believe Dan Osborne, Jacqueline Joss's husband, is actually involved in a GHB arrest. What do you make to this?
Wow, that's interesting. If that's the case, Dan Osborne, he looked like a bit of a character sometimes, but if he's been involved with grievous bodily harm, then, oh dear, that relationship's going to be under strain.
Yeah, very interesting. They've had a lot of issues, and all I can say is I hope that Jacqueline Joss is okay, because that could be a pretty horrible thing coming her way for her husband.
Yeah.
So I hope that them two are in good nick anyway. Time now for the Great British Stars and Red Devils of the Week. I've got my nominations already planned. So without further ado, I am going to get straight into them. Now, you would have seen today that England actually won something today in the sporting world because they have announced they've actually won something. They've actually done well today. It was in a wheelchair event, I believe, today.
I saw this.
I think it might have been, was it wheelchair
rugby? Wheelchair rugby,
yes. England have just won the Rugby World Cup in the wheelchair. Congratulations to them. 28-24 against France. I just want to say to England's wheelchair rugby team, huge congratulations for winning that, because honestly, it was brilliant. Great performance. I'm happy for you. Very proud. And another one I'm going to give a nomination to this week is Sebastian Vettel for his remarkable F1 career, spanning, well, let me guess, 15 years in Formula One, 2006, joining BMW Sauber that year and winning 4 world championships between 2010 and 2014 with Red Bull, 2013 with Red Bull Racing. Who doesn't remember the 2012 finale in Brazil where Vettel and Alonso were actually going into the race, Vettel needing to finish ahead of Alonso to win the championship at 7th or higher would have been enough, and he done it despite getting turned around in the first lap. Sebastian Vettel will retire at the end on Sunday after Sunday's race with an illustrious career behind him, and I wish him all the best for his future commitments after F1. My Red Devils this week is going to be Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, for the huge tax increases that have hit the country this week. I have to say, in my view, this is a disaster in the reckoning for the Conservative Party, and perhaps an election loss could be on the way right now. Now, my second nomination for the Great British Red Devil of the Week. a lot of people are going to slam. A lot of people are going to get controversial here because I'm going to nominate someone in particular this week from the G20 this week. I'm going to give it to someone who I think has been. I'm going to give it to Justin Trudeau.
Oh, I knew you were going to say
The
that.
Canadian Prime Minister. Now, the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, this week has been caught. Now, he was caught on camera, apparently having a conversation with Rishi Sunak, apparently over China. He apparently President Xi Jinping accused Trudeau of leaks to the media about the China-Canada relations this week. Now, apparently there was a leak that was going online of Trudeau saying something about China at the G20. And I have to say, I found that very crazy for what he said. And can't we see that we've got to be tough on China? Yes. But what he said about it could have well have sparked off some outrage across much of Western democracy. The Canadian president, why is he still in power? Don't understand. Zach, what do you make to my nominations and what are yours for the...
Interesting. I mean, yeah, that Justin Trudeau and Xi Jinping clip certainly was getting a bit of attention. The Chinese was, pretty agitated on camera, as you can probably tell. And Justin Trudeau was like standing there, with his smiley, happy face to the camera. He wasn't aware that his words were being recorded. And yeah, he obviously felt flattered by it, by some of the stuff that he said as well. Right, my choices for first of all, British Star this week. I'm going to sort of take it a little bit back this week. I'm going to do something a little bit more adorable, rather than something about sport and everything like that. Let's talk about Cheryl Skidios, who you may have never heard of. She's not a big celebrity in any way. She's an ordinary citizen. She's in her 70s. And she's filmed taking notes during a Marvel movie marathon, where she watched 30 Marvel films. So also she could be closer to her grandkids and talk to them about their interests. Now, obviously, it's a bit of a hard time, having grandkids and trying to communicate them in many ways. But this woman has dedicated her whole, many hours so far to watching Marvel films, so she can write down notes and interact about them with her grandchildren. I mean, it's just the sweetest thing that you could ever imagine. As well, she has 13 grandkids in total, ages 6 to 22. They're all big Marvel fans. Rather than writing off their interests as frivolous, as grandparents would want them to do, she decided to get on the same level as the Whispersnappers. She said, I just moved in with my grandparents, my grandma. One of the grandsons said, and my grandma was making her way through all the Marvel movies. She watched them in order they came out, and she asked if I wanted to watch one of her. So, of course, I said yes. What a grandmother. Cheryl Skidios is 70s, dedicated Marvel fan. Talk to the kids. You, sir, Cheryl, are my British Star today. Brilliant. That's what a grandmother should do. Having super Marvel fan, super grandkids. Awesome. Red Devil this week. It's pretty tricky, to be honest. I've got two in my mind. One of them, Russia. I mean, you can't, obviously, they're not being blamed at the moment for that rocket attack, but the fact that they even caused the potential for a rocket attack.
Definitely.
Is quite, well, yeah. I mean, even if it's Ukrainian rockets, they're still to blame at the end of the day for this war. Jeremy Hunt, as well, you could say, gets the second nomination as well for the miserable outlook that his party caused 7% real decline in affordable income, fuel duty rises as well, awful tax choices, all could have been avoidable for that terrible mini budget. I know they fit in some ways, but yeah, it's been awful. But yeah, there we go. The grandmother is the British Star of the week. There are Jeremy Hunt and Russia are the Red Devils this week.
Yeah, that's all I can say, guys. And we certainly overran a bit tonight as well. It's one of the longest shows I've ever done. But plenty,
not bad.
Plenty of chat. That's what this show is about. Plenty of talk on YouTube tonight, so I'm happy for that. Thanks so much for listening, guys. And I'll see you next week for another episode of Charlie Tolhurst Show. And I'm now going to go and watch I'm a Celebrity. Thanks so much for watching. Take care and good night.